Going out to the garden now. See what we got going on out here. How's everybody doing? We're gonna wait just a few minutes to make sure everybody can get in, and then we are gonna show this bad boy right here. It's not too hot yet, so this is the overview of the garden. Everything that's going on in all of its glory and a little bit of misery. But hey, that's gardening, right? So yeah, we are fully planted and we've got some good, bad, and ugly going on. So let's take a quick peek. I'm just gonna start in one bed and work my way across and then come back. So this is my peanut bed. I've got peanuts that I direct sowed from here to here, and then from here over are peanuts that I started inside. So we're kind of seeing how they do. And then we've got some butternut squash here, which are really starting to come along. I mean, if you look at them, they look pretty healthy. I don't see any damage from the almighty squash vine borer. So they're coming in, and we've got some black-eyed peas coming up here. Hey, Batavia. Thanks for coming in. So we've got some black-eyed peas that are just starting to climb. You can see, and I need to come out here and just give them a little twist so they'll send up, but you'll see that the other ones are sending up runners on the other side of the garden soon. So this chard back here has been just taken over. I harvest, and it's shading out a peanut. So I'm actually probably going to just remove that completely and get rid of it. But if we keep moving down, my carrots are just about ready, and I've actually got some that are going to seed. So what I'm going to do is put organza bags on them. They're these little mesh bags, and try and catch this seed and save it so I can have more seed, because carrot seeds don't really last that long in storage. But my carrots are getting ready to harvest. I've got a mixture of purple and regular carrots. So if we look down, yeah, that's a regular carrot right there. Some of these are purple. I just kept sowing and sowing and sowing. Kind of had a hard time getting them going this year. This is my Desi squash. So you can see everything is good. Look, we've got some squash vine borer damage there, so I'll try and recover from that. I got the same thing, Batavia. I don't know. That thing right there is just, it shades, and I don't want to cut it, but it is what it is. I've got more chard in the other part of the garden, but I have a theory behind it that I'll get to in a minute. But here's, so this is all the last of my Desi squash seeds, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So I'm actually waiting to get some. I've got a couple of them off already, but I want to let some overripe so I can save the seed. I don't see any coming in right now, but they get all hidden down there. And this is actually a scallop squash. Never grown these before. But you can see in the back there, we've got one coming in. So that should be interesting. Maybe one of those things where we get tired of eating them too. Who knows? And then this bed here, this is a hot mess. So this was all my garlic, which I'll have a garlic video coming out soon for you guys. But from here over was all garlic, so I need to weed it and then figure out what to squeeze back in its place. Here's a cherry tomato that I propagated, so I'm just waiting to put it in, and it's probably, if I have to guess, it's probably rooted down in the bottom there. But I've got some corn over here that I started a late sowing of corn, which I usually do late, but you can see that it's starting to come in. So this is all corn right here, and then we have our basil. And then my new marigolds this year that are getting tall, which is what I wanted. Hold on, my camera fogged up. Let me clear it off for you. There we go. And then my green beans, which you can see I have Japanese beetles. So we will be starting our regimen for that soon. But they're coming up pretty good. We're starting to get some flowers, so you know what that means. If you listen to the podcast, it's going to make you feel like a badass farmer because I'm going to be harvesting the crap out of them. And apparently I'm going to be hunting down Japanese beetles as they make more beetles in front of our eyes. So that's kind of a pain. And then here's our tomatoes, or some of our tomatoes. These are all, focus, Roma tomatoes. So this one is a monster. Check it out. I mean, underneath it, I have my jalapenos. So I've been trying to stake. I've been adding stakes and trying to pull it back slowly. Because what happens is it gets used to the sun and it'll start laying over and getting weird. So what I'm doing is I'm staking it and slowly tightening it up, very incrementally. And then that'll allow it to stretch for the sun so I don't actually break the plant, because I have one that's broken, which is sad, but that's okay. So as we prop it up, it'll start to grow and stretch up towards the sun, and we don't have to stretch it as hard. But you can see too, you can clearly see in this bed where the sun comes from. If I step back a little bit, you have the biggest one, the second biggest, and now the third biggest. So you can see that the sun comes this way through it. But we are getting tomatoes, and I do need to come trim them. So we are having tomatoes now, which is good. And then these are all sweet peppers. This one, I don't know what happened. I just noticed this yesterday. So I'm going to give it a good watering today and see what happened. It may have a disease. It just kind of crept up on me, but it's trying to push out peppers, so we're going to keep it going. And then we have what is becoming a nightmare this year is my cucumbers. They just do not want to grow. So I've sowed this 3 times now. And then I've sowed this back one 4 times. I just did my 4th one and nothing's coming up yet. So I need to keep it watered and just kind of focus on it. But the cattle panel, I got a weird situation going on here. I have these black beans that I planted, and they look like they're trying to grow now. They've been sitting idle for months, and I thought they were bush beans, and I'm kind of waiting to see what's going on here, because you can see that looks like a green bean, but now it looks like it's starting to stretch, so it should send up runners at some point. And it looks like it's starting to, so I need to come out and wind them back up so they can start growing up like they want to. And then these are the Semi-Determinate Tomatoes I grew this year. They're Homestead Tomatoes, and they are not growing as big as I thought they would. That's really all I have to say about that. Just nowhere near what I thought. So here's my single stemming tomato, and I had a bad storm and it broke. So yeah, I'm kind of letting it lay there. I was going to try and patch it up, but I'm going to let it lay there and heal itself back up and see what happens. But yeah, we had a bad storm and the wind came through and blew it over. And then here we have, this is a classic. Let me get some focus on this. Septoria leaf spot on this cherry tomato. So what we're going to do is we've begun treating for it yesterday, and I'm probably going to make a video on how I treated for it once I get it under control. But you can kind of see the yellow halos around that. That's a Septoria leaf spot, and we get that a lot around here. About, you know, anytime around this time of year we'll start to get it, and it'll make the leaves die off, and then it's kind of a nightmare. So this plant kept falling over as well, and I think that from it laying on the ground with the water, it kind of expedited that process. So we'll see. But I have a treatment regimen in mind, and we're going to work for it. Here's another one that looks like it's starting to get it. You can see, I don't know, I can't tell if maybe it's heat stress because it got really hot for a couple days, but it looks like it's climbing up the plant. and that's a good indication that there's an issue going on with the plant. So we'll be treating that consistently. So like I said, once I get it under control, I'll probably make a video about how I'm treating this leaf spot. And it's not affecting all of my plants yet. As you can see, this one's totally fine. No issues whatsoever. Yeah, so at the bottom, we may be starting to get it, but once I start treating one, I treat them all. I mean, what's the point? What's the point in making a solution to treat something and then not kind of just staying on top of it and treating all of them? Because I want to get it under control. And if you know anything about diseases on plants, they jump from plant to plant to plant. So if I have it there, like, I mean, now that I've touched it with my fingers, if I touch another one, I could potentially spread it. So it's kind of an issue, but we'll work through it. Let's go over here to this section. So here we have our edamame, and I've been harvesting some edamame. I did one harvest, and I'm gonna do another one in a couple days, and I have some more seeds coming. I ran out of seeds because I planted so much, but I'll harvest these completely and then replant them completely and try and get a whole nother harvest. And they're like an 80-day crop, so it can take a long time. But behind it, we have some zucchinis, and I planted them heavy this year because I've had so much problems with squash vine borers. But I seem to have just maybe stumbled across something that will help with that, and now I may have just a plethora of zucchinis, which I'm not going to argue about. But then behind it we have watermelons, and my plan is I'm going to come out today and cut this down really low, this path, and move all of this watermelon here so it grows out into the path and fills it up, because I don't need it growing back here, because I'm kind of letting this area rest because it grew kind of heavy in the winter. You can see this collard here, which in a minute I'm going to show you how many seeds I got off this collard plant. It's crazy. Here you go. This is the one that is starting to climb. So it's just shooting up its runners. This is a black-eyed pea, and they sat idle, but now that it's getting real hot, they're now starting to stretch up and start to grow. So we should be getting some black-eyed peas shortly. I anticipate that it'll go all the way up, and then it'll try and go back down, and then that's when it'll start to flower. In my new container garden, I have what may be two things going on here. So it may be sunlight issues, and it may be nitrogen issues. So you see the yellowing of the leaves? That may be one of either. I can't tell, because it does compete with sun here. But the only reason why I'm leaning more towards nitrogen issues is because behind it is this eggplant, and it's producing in this pot. So it needs to be weeded, which it has been now. So we're good. But yeah, I'm thinking that this is not a sunlight issue. So I gave it some more nitrogen, and I'll give it a couple weeks to see what happens. I can come out with some fish fertilizer and give it a quick shot, and that'll feed it immediately. But I've put some blood meal down, and we'll see if that helps with any of the yellowing at all. And you can see that the top of them are actually starting to come. So there could be a couple things going on here. But the key is not to rush and kind of get in a tizzy about it. That's the biggest thing about gardening, is you don't want to just be really reactive and immediately think, I've got to fix this. I've got to get out here and go out there and feed it and move it and do all this stuff. Sometimes it pays to just relax, watch it, make small adjustments, and see what can happen. So we're at the wild garden now. We'll see. So here we have sweet potatoes, which are coming in. And then I do have some chard planted in here. And so what I was going to say about chard is, it seems to me in the summertime when it gets hot that the chard actually stops growing. I'm not sure if that's totally the case or not, but it seems to me that it will, because if I left this in the ground in the fall, it would just explode. But I will be harvesting this to make more room for the sweet potatoes as they start to grow more and more and more. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean these vines will fill up this whole bed and then run out here and go out into the yard. They will easily go 10, 15 feet out in about a month. They start growing fast, so we've been feeding them pretty heavy. This bed here, this is the beds that I added all the fresh soil to and redid this year. So it's all a work in progress. But you see we've got a couple more tomatoes in the back. We've got some okra, which I'm going to seed. And then I've got a couple more eggplants, and these were planted later. So they're going to take their time growing. The peppers here, we have some red cherry peppers, and we have some, I believe, some more lipstick peppers over here. And again, they're taking their time, but they were planted much later in the year. So we kind of did that in a wave so we could get a more spread out harvest. This is where the potatoes were. And so we put a couple more zucchini in case we have squash vine borer issues. And then we put a little bit more corn in, you can see. So I kind of took some extras that were growing over there and just plugged them in. So we've got, a handful over here. And then we've got some husk tomatoes here. So these are ground cherries. And you can see that you harvest these when they fall to the ground. And so the key is to get them before the ants get them. And I'm going to tell you, damn, that's good. Tastes like pineapple. Just like pineapple. So if you've been watching the channel for any amount of time, you know I've done a couple videos about trimming peppers. And I want to show you how that kind of worked out. So these are cayenne peppers, sorry, brain fart. And this is where I topped it. So you can see that it's going to branch off and then branch off again. And then that'll just give us more opportunity. See, I had a question come in. Yeah, the ground cherries do grow slowly. Last year mine grew crazy, but this year they've grown slowly, but they usually stay pretty low. Last year they got that tall and that was unheard of. Let me get out of the strawberry patch. But yeah, they do grow slowly, so hey there. And I know somebody who planted them around their farm. And since they get like that, they planted them real close and actually kept the deer out of their farm completely. So, but that's the wild garden. You see, we got a couple tomatoes to harvest. I've let a couple okra go. The first okra is not worried about, until I start getting about 100 of them. I'm not worried about them. Hey, thank you. So we come back around. I'm gonna show you this chard too because it's just amazing. And I want to talk about some plans that I have. Look how thick it is. Isn't that crazy? It's just huge. But I'm trying to get it to go to seed, and I don't know if I'm gonna wait because the peanuts, you can see that peanut shaded pretty hard and it's actually starting to stretch. So we got to take care of that. So all of this will be, again, I'll probably put edamame in here and grow it fast because this is a bare patch. So we'll do that there. Here will be parsnips. We'll see how big the corn gets. I've not really mastered corn and I'm not really overly concerned about it, but we'll see how big it gets. So all of this from here over, from right there, is going to be parsnips, hopefully. That's the plan. We'll see how that works. So what do you guys got going on in your gardens? I'm curious. Let's see. Da-da. Batavia's Chard's being a bully. Can understand that. Yeah, the growth in the tomatoes is crazy, and I think that's because of the amount of compost that I put in and the way that it gets watered. as often as it gets watered. I did a video that released this week about saving water, and I mentioned that I think we underwater our plants, our gardens, and I think that's really what's going on there. So it's just getting more water. But let me go up here and show you how many seeds I got off one collard. It's crazy. It's I can tell you this, saving seeds is a lot of work. It takes a lot of space, but the return you get is amazing. So I've got to go inside because I held them, shucked them, hold them, whatever it is, and they are drying. I want to get them real dry before I put them in storage. But let me show you this. This is absolutely crazy. Here we go. One plant. Look at that. All the way to the rim. I don't know how many seeds are in there, but that's one plant. And then you see all that debris in there. You can just take it and blow it out. And then you've got clean seed. Just like that. So it's kind of crazy. So yeah, that's what's going on in my garden. I got a bunch of, actually, let me show you my blackberries too. They're starting to come in finally. So this part of the time is worth saving them. The hardest for me are beans, leaving them on for so long. I like a pretty garden. Yeah, I can feel you on that one, but at the same time, I can't keep up with the beans, so I usually get a lot of them. And I failed at sending Batavia beans this year, so I'm sorry. Still love you, but I'm sorry. So yeah, we're starting to get blackberries, and the trick with blackberries is they don't ripen once you take them off. So you've got to leave them going. You got to leave them on the vine until they get ripe, or else they're just gonna be sour as shit. So I did a couple of videos that are coming out soon that are in my workstation, and Batavia asked what am I starting or growing right now. So I've definitely started my Brussels sprouts. I started cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, cilantro, and then I'll start other things in the coming. I'll start a bunch of perennial flowers to fill out my yard. But back here in my work area, which I try to keep hidden, but I guess the cat's out of the bag now, I'll show you what I've been propagating. So I like this area because it stays shady. So all of this is hydrangea that I've cut and propagated, okay? So I did a test. I did actually a rather big test to see if they would hold. Looks like they're holding just fine. A little propagating lesson for you guys. I cut the leaves here. As you can see, I've cut all of the leaves for two reasons. One, because the plant's not big enough to feed this. There's no roots, so it can't feed all the leaves, so you cut them in half. And two, I cut them in half so I could see the new growth. And all of this is new growth. So I know, let me see. I'm curious how much roots there are in this. Look at that, there's roots. So we're good. We've got roots, man. We got plants. We got actual plants. And this is lavender. It got really dry, so I had a lot of dieback, obviously. But I'll take a dead one out and show you what I did. So you take and you clear off, if you have lavender, focus on it. You clear off all the dead and you just stick it in, and then that will root. And I get all of them off of one plant that's only 1 year old. So we've got another tomato here that's actually ready to go out in the sun. I propagated this, reused the container, you know, sustainable gardening and all that. So what I'm gonna do is I'll put it up here and just let the sun hit it slowly for a couple days. And the yellowing is because it's not been getting a lot of sun back there, but it should start growing, and you can see that there are roots in there. So we'll let that grow. And yeah, that is the garden. That is everything except for the flowers. We're got a lot more to do, and if I show you all of this back here, that's all going to be those hydrangeas. So now that I know that they can root, I'm going to redo some more and get them all back here and line this whole thing to try and cover the woods a little bit with it. Spinach gets so big when going to seed. I feel you. Bees love them though, and that is exactly right, Chelsea. I had spinach that was like, spinach starts off, it gets about this big, and when it was flowering and going to seed, it ended up getting probably 4 feet tall, and I couldn't handle it, so I had to take and cut it back, and I just ended up not saving the seed. It's spinach is a hard one for me. I got to admit I'm not good at spinach, so thank you, Urbanite Farms. Thank you very much. So, what are you guys starting in June? What kind are you guys getting ready for your fall gardens? That's what I want to know. Because unfortunately, it is time to think about that. It is time to consider what you're going to grow, and it's kind of weird to be sowing seeds right now. I mean, as we start pretty soon. We'll start talking about this on the Backyard Gardens podcast about all the seeds starting and fall and everything, and it feels weird to be talking about it so early in the year, but that's how it is. You got to get ready. I think I'm going to try and do rutabaga this year by seed and pre-start those. I'm going to start those about a month before I plant them out so they have a nice root system. Because it is so hot here, we need to make sure that we can water them, but if they have roots, they can already take up water. So our urban homestead says I'll be starting broccoli, carrots, and Brussels in about 2 weeks. So I have to start my Brussels sprouts. I have to get them in the ground no later than the middle of August. Urbanite Farms just planted a second round of summer squash. They don't start their season until mid-July. What zones are you guys in? I'm curious about that too, because I'm in zone 8A. So I have to start earlier, but I know for me, when I lived in Batavia, correct me, I know you've heard me say it 1,000 times. When I lived in Massachusetts, I was in, I think, zone 6 or 5. I started my seeds. I would start my fall seeds in early June, I believe, or even May, to get them in the ground so they'd have enough roots to get established, because then I would cover them and I would do all kinds of, I did this thing where I put a bucket of water in, and then I put aquarium heaters in it and then covered it, and then that would radiate the heat out. And so I could grow greens throughout most of the winter. But I had to start mine in about May for some of the, the broccolis and stuff like that. The lettuce you can do later, but that's how I did it. So yeah, it's an uphill battle. I'll be doing lettuce. Next, I'll be sowing lettuce, kale, chard. I'm probably going to do a couple beets, and then that should round me out mostly for my fall garden and winter garden. And then I'll direct sow when it's time, turnips and all that kind of stuff, because they grow so fast. But yeah, so that's my garden, everybody. Thank you for coming. Check out the show, man. We got a pretty cool series coming out soon, so I hope you guys like it. We just wrapped up the sustainable series, so I hope everybody's looking at their gardens and trying to be as sustainable as possible. Maybe there's a lot of easy things we can do, so let's make a difference. And thank you so much. And remember, let's all learn to grow and grow for change. And until next time, we'll catch you guys later. See ya. Maybe.